Now, this time last night, I pointed to the request by Russia for China's support in supplying them military weapons as a pivotal point in this war in Ukraine. And it's also a massive indicator of how far China is prepared to go to create this supposed new world order that both China and Russia spoke about only a month ago. Well, today, senior Chinese and American officials met in Rome to discuss exactly that, with the US warning China to refuse Russia's offer and stay out of the war.
The National Security Advisor and our delegation raised directly and very clearly our concerns about the PRC's support to Russia in the wake of the invasion and the implications that any such support would have for the PRC's relationship not only with us, but for its relationships around the world.
But this afternoon, the world is reporting that the Chinese gave a clear indication to US officials in that meeting in Rome that Beijing was indeed open to support Russia. Now, that could change the entire complexion of this war and Putin's power thereafter. Meanwhile, peace talks have been paused after the Ukrainians again requested a no-fly zone over their airspace. It was refused. NATO is still very concerned that any encroachment by them into Ukrainian airspace or territory could trigger a nuclear reaction from the now desperate Russian president. How real is that, though? And what nuclear options does Putin actually have? I'm joined now by American sociologist and expert in international affairs from Sydney University, Salvatore Babones. Salvatore, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
You specialise in China's global integration, and
Right.
This is where your expertise fits perfectly with what has developed in the last 24 hours. Are you surprised that China is willing to support Russia militarily?
I'm not surprised that they're willing to support China. I'm surprised that they're willing to say that they're willing to support Russia. China, of course, operates a lot of Russian equipment in its army and air force. It's no surprise that China could offer to supply some of that back to Russia, probably at a price. But it is very surprising for them to go on the record and make that say that out loud.
Because they could do that secretly, privately, without anyone knowing. They don't have to tip off the world.
Well, China's style is to do things behind the scenes instead of to do them publicly.
This decision has the potential, does it not, to save Putin, crush Ukraine, and create this new world order that they spoke about a month ago?
I don't know if the Chinese support is really that significant. Chinese political support and economic support matter much more than military support. Russia certainly has the resources to continue the war in Ukraine. It might be short on specific weapon systems or specific strategic needs, but in general, it would be able to continue the war if it can afford to. The real problem for Russia is the economic bind it's in due to Western sanctions, and that's where China can really provide the most help.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When we think about what Ukrainians want, which is a no-fly zone, they also want jet fighters sent to them from Poland, and the United States has said, no, we will not fulfill that deal, and we will not create a no-fly zone. Are they genuinely concerned that Putin could trigger a nuclear reaction here?
The problem is we don't know what could trigger a nuclear war. We've never had nuclear escalation before. A lot of people point to the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, but that did not lead to a nuclear war. So we don't really know what could cause a nuclear escalation. I don't think we want to find out.
You don't think we should prod the bear?
Well, we need to help Ukraine defend itself. That's clear. We should have done that earlier.
Yeah.
The time to send weapons to Ukraine was 2018, not 2022. Now that Ukraine is facing an invasion, I think it makes absolute sense for NATO, the United States, for allies around the world to help Ukrainians help themselves. But to get involved, to start escalating the war in Ukraine, and let's face it, a no-fly zone would be a massive escalation. It would mean having to strike Russian installations inside Russia in order to make a no-fly zone enforceable. That sounds very scary to me. And although I think we all want, or at least all of us outside Russia, very much want to see a free and independent Ukraine, even more so, we don't want to see a nuclear war.
And we don't have to guess what nuclear options Putin has. He has plenty, right?
He has the world's largest nuclear arsenal, 6,000 weapons, slightly more than the United States, about a quarter of them deployable at a moment's notice. That's pretty scary.